for music. I come here for human contact in the middle of the day. When the morning has gone past and I've had lunch, and I think to myself, I need to see some human beings here before my wife gets home, except other than the human beings in my head. So I'll go over to the Weston Library. And Madeline and I talk about history a lot. And that's what I like to write as well. That is why I have brought you all here together. I finally finished this book. I want you all to remember fascinating and surprisingly fascinating. The rest of it, just pick out the big words: adrenaline-packed adventure, etc., etc. It was very satisfying to get a nice review in Booklist, and also to be able to fulfill yet again the definition of what it is that I do, which was best expressed by my son, some of you know him, Dan, when he was about 5 years old, sitting in the backyard, talking with his little friends about what their parents did for a living. One little boy said, "My daddy's a lawyer. He goes to court every day and puts away bad guys and makes us all safe." Little girl said, "My mommy's a doctor. She goes to the hospital every day and makes people better." And my son said, "My daddy's a writer. He goes up in the attic every day and makes stuff up." And that is what I do. I make stuff up. However, I have been fortunate that I have been able to make stuff up based upon history. I was always interested from the time that I was a kid in historical fiction. From the time that my father gave me a novel called No Survivors about General Custer and a scout who rides with Custer. And they ride to the top of the hill and look down into Medicine Tail Coulee on a Sunday in June 1876. And the scout looks at Custer and he says, "I wouldn't go down there if I were you, General. I got a really bad feeling about this." And when I read that as a kid, I thought to myself, we're at a moment, as we read this, where history hasn't happened yet, where the decisions that will be made in order to create that event, which in some way will create who we are as Americans, and on an individual basis, as whoever we happen to be, thanks to our ancestors, the decision hasn't been made yet. The drama is yet to be lived. And that's what I have tried to do, is to bring that drama to life across 40 years now. Actually, it's what year are we in? 1978. It's 44 years, because Bound for Gold first came to me 44 years ago. I had gone to the USC Film School, and I took in my first screenwriting class a class where I had to write a treatment and then write a screenplay. And I looked around at all of my friends, all of whom had come from all different parts of America, and all of them had gotten to California with stars in their eyes. We're all going to be famous and rich movie directors and producers and so on and so forth. And I thought to myself, we are just like the people who came to California 130 years ago to live the California dream, the people in the gold rush. Now, I said to myself, I would much rather write about the gold rush, because they taught you even then, write what you know. And I never believed write what you know. I always believed write what you want to find out, or where you want to go, or who you want to meet when you get there. And I was much more interested in writing about the gold rush than in writing about, say, the USC Film School. And so I wrote the script about a New England company that organizes itself in 1849. There were 144 of these companies that got organized the minute that the word came to the east that there was gold in California. Every one of these companies was comprised of about 100 men. They'd put up $100 or $200 as a bond. They would buy tools, food, and provisions, which would be loaded onto the ship. They would get passage around the Horn, and They would all get to San Francisco, and as soon as they got to San Francisco, the companies would go, they would just fall apart. Because these guys were so sick of each other at this point, having been on a ship together for 6 or 8 months. So I wrote a script about a young man who joins this company. He joins it because he wants a big adventure. And the big adventure, of course, is that excitement of going to the gold rush and of writing about it. They all wanted to write about it. The journals that you can find about the gold rush will fill 2 or 3 shelves in this library. They all wanted to see the elephant. They also were comprised, these companies, of men who really needed to make the money, who had big dreams. And I include a couple of characters who are big dreamers in this novel as well. An Irish character who some of you may have met, who will eventually ride off with my young man, my young journalist, and they'll have all kinds of adventures. But one of the earliest adventures for me is doing the research. And I'm going to take you into the research now. I'm going to show you the visual material that I studied in order to create a novel like this. And in the process, I'm going to give you the story of the gold rush in a kind of high-angle overview. So